What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 9 Chains. Chapter 201 Helpless. Advertise here. In the conference room, as Akainu and Aokiji were in a stalemate, hot and cold alternated for a while, as if the whole world was torn in half. The fruit abilities of the two of them have also awakened to the extreme and begun to affect the surrounding space environment. However, this isn't just a battle between Akainu and Aokiji, it's also Fujitora and Green Bull. Their presence filled the entire conference room with a tense atmosphere, as if a fierce battle would be triggered at any time. When the former fleet admiral passed power to the Warring States period, there was no such situation. It seems that the war on the top not only changed the pattern of pirates, but also had a profound impact on Marine's internal affairs. He, who is 76 years old and already looking old, with gray hair and a simple ponytail reaching his shoulders, sighed secretly in his heart. She silently picked up the water glass on the table and took a sip. Apparently she believes in pure justice, and serves as a consultant and has no intention of getting involved in this dispute. For her, this is just a party struggle about justice, but the justice she firmly believes in and the so-called purity seemed so pale at this moment. Your justice is so ridiculous. Akainu and Aokiji said in unison again, with endless sarcasm in their voices. Akainu firmly believes in absolute justice and advocates using violence to fight violence, while Aokiji prefers gentle methods to maintain peace. This difference caused them to disagree on many issues, which ultimately led to today's situation. However, whether it is Akainu or Aokiji, they are fighting for justice in their own minds, and no one can convince the other. In fact, the dispute between the two started a long time ago, but they just never found the right time to break out. Now that the position of Yuanshi has been vacated, the two have completely opposite concepts of justice, and their contradictions are as incompatible as their fruit elements. Now, all that separates the two is a casual trigger. Suddenly, Akainu and Aokiji raised their left hands at the same time. Bang! What do you two want to do? As soon as there was a move, Sengoku and Garp took action at the same time. Garp was directly armed with domineering energy, pressed the back of Sakazuki's head with his big hand, suppressed him, smashed the conference table, and pinned him to the ground. At the same time, he had a look of shock on his face. Garp. Akainu gritted his teeth as he felt Garp's power that didn't want to stop him at all. Sengoku grabbed Kuzan's half-raised arm, and at the same time relied on his own powerful domineering force to suppress Aokiji's fruit power for a while. Kuzan, don't do anything stupid. Warring States said calmly. Before the release, Sengoku might have used his position as Fleet Admiral to suppress the two of them, but since Tom and Jerry broke into Mary Hoya 2 days ago, his career as Fleet Admiral has come to an end. The 5 old guys from World Government issued a transfer order for Sengoku to step down from the position of Fleet Admiral of Marine Headquarters. However, until the new Fleet Admiral was elected, Sengoku was still acting but no longer in a position. At this time, Fujitora and Green Bull were also glaring at each other, with sparks in their eyes. This is not a place for you to do anything casually. 2 generals, he said sternly. He would still reprimand these 2 guys. HMPH. Faced with the staff officer, Lu Niu could only snort coldly, while Fujitora said nothing and showed no dissatisfaction, and quietly put away his staff and sword. At this moment, Akainu and Aokiji suddenly exerted their strength and broke free from their restraints. Akainu bent down to pick up the hat that fell on the ground, patted the dust on it, gently stroked the messed up hair, and then put the hat back on his head. If there is still a decision from above. Akainu's eyes swept over Garp and finally settled on Aokiji. I prefer to use my own strength to fight for it. After saying this, Akainu pushed the gate of opening without any hesitation and left the conference room, followed closely by Green Bull. Aokiji, on the other hand, seemed very calm. He whispered to himself, Marine can't be like this. Sengoku quietly looked at the calm Aokiji in front of him, and couldn't help but feel a sense of relief in his heart. He was looking forward to an optimistic about Aokiji. Originally, the position of Fleet Admiral should be selected by the upper management based on the performance of the two of you and the support rate of the department. But, Sakazuki proposed another plan to the above. Quote. Hearing this, Aokiji turned his head, stared at Sengoku with his ferocious scarred eyes, and asked, another plan. The position of Fleet Admiral will be decided by the strength of both of you. The most important thing is that the 5 old guys above actually think this plan is good. Warring States frowned, shook his head helplessly, and then sighed deeply. If compared with the main support rate, Aokiji is not inferior to Akainu at all. However, if there was a one-on-one fight, Sengoku looked at Aokiji's left hand that was cut off by Captain Tren and hesitated to speak. Aokiji seemed to understand what Sengoku meant. He looked down at his left hand, which was made of ice, and raised his right hand to gently touch the hideous scar under his right eye that spread to the entire body. He remembered the life and death battle with Captain Tren, when he almost lost his life. But now, Sakazuki has come up with such an idea, which is really disgusting. How despicable. Why didn't Whitebeard cripple you too? Sakazuki. Aokiji cursed secretly in his heart, his voice low and hoarse, as if squeezed out from between his teeth. Kuzan, Fleet Admiral is actually not very good. Garp looked at Aokiji and was about to persuade him. After all, he was the one who brought Aokiji out when he was young. But before he could finish his words, he was interrupted by Aokiji. Lieutenant General Garp, I will not give up. Marine must not become like that. After saying that, Aokiji also walked away. Actually, Sengoku Fleet Admiral is pretty good. Fujitora sighed, and then left slowly. What is this? Warring States period. Crane's eyes were also filled with sadness. A Fleet Admiral, Why do you have to resign, Sengoku? Garp, who was unaware, looked at Sengoku and asked curiously. Looking at his old friend who had walked along the way, Sengoku smiled helplessly and put his cloak of justice on the Fleet Admiral chair he had made for decades. Someone must be responsible for the hundreds of thousands of soldiers who died in Marine Fando. Responsible for Zepha's rebellion, responsible for the Battle of Red Harbor at that time, responsible for the second attack on Marie Joa. Originally, I planned to wait for the new Marine Fando to arrange everything in a few days, and then voluntarily submit a letter to Commander Cyborg Kong to resign. Quote. He said that warring states took out the transfer order sent to world government 2 days ago, but I never expected that the higher-ups couldn't wait to kick me out. P.S. The new list lives up to expectations, squatting in the boat. The Holy Lord is elected. Also, is it better for the Holy Lord to be entrenched on a wall on the Black Pearl, or directly wrap around the ship like a traditional Chinese dragon? Which of these two squatting boat forms is better? Everyone. Also, Shanyu would like to thank everyone for their blessings. Really, this is the first time I have received so many blessings. I am really happy for my birthday this year. Wavy Dash Chapter 202 Carnival of Redemption. Advertise here. New World, Tot Kingdom Islands, Rockmit's Island, Nonamit's Town. The ninjas of the Shadow Legion were frantically carrying specialty honey from the town. Ever since Perospero promised to use raw materials produced by the island owners of all countries as an apology gift, this was the last island that Tren and his gang moved to. This is a robber. How can there be such a thing? He won't leave anything behind. What will my mother and my honey-loving brothers do? The general appearance is that of a slender man with long dark hair, wearing a dark high-collared long-sleeved top with trim and dark pantyhose, carrying a purple blow syringe, and wearing light-colored flat boat shoes. The girl wore a moderate dotted suspender skirt with a balloon shape extending from the waist down and a ponytail that curved outward. Looking at the ninjas of the Shadow Legion who looked like bandits, she couldn't help but prepare to rush forward on the spot. The 36th daughter of the Charlotte family, Honey Minister Charlotte Flamp. Sister Flamp, calm down. Perospero pulled his sister, who was usually spoiled and arrogant and liked to chew bubble gum, with a helpless look on his face. He also didn't expect that a black pearl was really like a bottomless pit, and it couldn't be filled no matter what. Brother Perospero. Franpe shouted to Perospero, with a hint of coquettishness and complaint in his voice. However, Perospero remained unmoved and just looked at her coldly. Sister Flamp, this is Mother's tacit apology. Perospero said in a cold tone, with a sense of majesty in his eyes. With a drink, this sister who was the most favored in the family. Nowadays, he is obviously a little tired and impatient. He is like this every time he goes to an island. Is that what he, Perospero, wants? If it weren't for Monder's stupidity and his mother's blindness, would he have used it like this? He has been trying to maintain the friendship with the Tren Adventure Group, but his younger brothers, sisters and mother. Brother Perospero. Looking at the unfamiliar Perospero, Flamper swallowed and stopped talking. Soon, as the last island, all things were taken from Lockmit's Island. Perospero, thank Charlotte. Linlin for me. This is a good apology. Tren looked at Perospero and chuckled. Captain Tren, you are joking, this is just a small sincerity of the Big Mom pirates. Perospero rubbed his hands and smiled. Looking at Perospero, Tren nodded, and then continued. Don't worry, the deal we made at the beginning is still valid. Seeing what Tren said, Perospero breathed a sigh of relief. At least there was one more good thing. I'll go back to my mother then, hoping that Captain Tren will come to the wedding banquet. Perospero said and left. At the same time, the Black Pearl was still docked at Lockmit's Island and held a banquet on the left side of the island. Of course, all this was due to the return of Aowen, Gnosis and Abao, and it also made up for the last banquet missed because of volleyball. At night, the Black Pearl was parked here steadily. On the empty island shore, the bonfire was shining. The large table moved by the ninjas of the Shadow Legion was placed around the bonfire, with mountains of delicious food on the table. There are sweet and delicious fruit cakes covered with fresh strawberries, blueberries, mangoes and other fruits and desserts. There is a golden and crispy roasted turkey and a large steak with juicy sauce exuding an alluring aroma. There are also a variety of seafood, lobsters, crabs, and shellfish, which make people salivate just looking at them. There is a ninja at the side table who is responsible for the barbecue, and the platelets are blinking their eyes, carrying the plates with their little hands, and staring at the cold barbecue ninja. I heard from the leader that you have to shout for this. Platelet number 1 tilted his head. That's right, platelet number 2 nodded, and then imitated the tone. Xinjiang barbecue skewers, delicious, mutton skewers. Hearing the shouts of platelet number 2, the remaining 3 platelets opened their eyes even wider and said in unison, so, brother ninja, you. Barbecue ninja, I have to say that the ninjas of the Shadow Legion are really. He can go up to the hall, he can go down to the kitchen, he can stay lonely, and he can achieve brilliance. Having them saves a lot of chores. At the banquet, Tren stood in the center of the banquet, with a joyful smile on his face, and said loudly, "Let us warmly welcome Orn, Nasus-en. Dragon warrior and martial arts genius plus the cutest panda. Ada." This part was all said by Po himself. Po took the staff of Qianwei and swung it like a stick, but he overdid it and tripped his left foot and his right foot, causing him to fall. Looking at this scene, Li Jing stroked his beard and nodded with a smile. "Okay. I didn't expect that the three of you came back secretly. However, if you go to the group leader first when you come back, you will have to punish yourself with 3 drinks." "No problem," Noble Nasus said calmly, holding up the cup and raising the corners of his mouth. As for other people at the banquet, Timo blinked his big eyes, held a small cake in his hand, and said vaguely, "It's delicious." Just as he was about to take a bite, the cake turned into Gengar, which scared him so much that he fell from his chair. Gengar. 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 Gengar floated in the air, letting out cheerful laughter from time to time. Steve stood aside silently, watching the lively scene with a simple and honest smile on his face. Thor raised his wine glass high and shouted, "Cheers to our reunion." Chef Bai Shang was very busy in the kitchen, and delicious dishes were served one after another. The pet dumpling turned into a small one and ran happily among everyone, nuzzling this and hugging that from time to time, making everyone laugh constantly. SpongeBob and Patrick sang and danced on the stage and even brought Squidward along with them, while Squidward looked on helplessly and muttered, "These two guys are really crazy." But that Squidward version of the mechanical dance is really something, and you can tell from one glance that he has been practicing it for a long time. Alan was still sitting quietly in the corner, watching the lively scene. At this time, Steve slowly walked up to him. Both of them were from the craftsman group. Facing Steve, Alan had no words. Chatted. Orn likes being alone, but Orn doesn't hate being with everyone. The atmosphere of the banquet is getting more and more lively. The big wolf above pulled a bow and spun awkwardly on the dance floor, making everyone laugh. Thor and Sadako also danced together in front of the bonfire. An enthusiastic maid and an eerie beauty formed a strange combination. Gengar used the ability of subspace to tease Patrick from time to time. Patrick was so angry that he jumped up and shouted, "Gengar, don't make trouble." While SpongeBob on the side was rolling on the ground with laughter. Tren looked at his happy friends and was filled with emotion. "This is our adventure group. No matter what difficulties we encounter, we can face it together and have a carnival together." At this moment, gorgeous fireworks bloomed in the sky, lighting up the entire dark sky. Chef Bai Shang came out with freshly baked delicacies, and Tren quickly greeted everyone. "Stop looking, why don't you come and try Bai Shang's new dishes, everyone?" Coming. Everyone rushed forward. Chapter 203. The props still need to be synthesized. Advertise here. While everyone was discussing the taste of the new dishes around White Bear, Tren quietly leaned on the recliner, enjoying the rocking of the recliner, looking up at the night sky, and secretly sighing in his heart. Scenes like this with stars all over the place were rare before. "How long have you been here?" "This year will probably pass, almost 4 years. Fortunately, Thor likes to keep track of days. Otherwise, it would be easy to lose track of time when he is floating on the sea like this every day." Quote. Just as Tren was muttering to himself, a black and gray furry hand holding a wine glass suddenly broke into his field of vision. "I and everyone will always accompany the leader," came the voice of Big Wolf. Hearing Grey Wolf's words, Tren's eyes moved slightly, turned to look at Grey Wolf, and then took the wine glass handed over by Grey Wolf. "My king, I'm tired from dancing, but Bao is still excited." Seeing Tren take over, Big Wolf also sat down directly on the ground. "I didn't expect you, Big Wolf, to have such dancing skills." Thinking of the eye-catching Latin dance performed by Big Wolf and Abao just now, Tren took a sip of his wine and smiled. Hearing Tren's joke, Big Wolf's expression instantly became embarrassed, and his voice lowered a bit. "I learned it from Hong before. Is it really like this? Isn't it a special hobby?" At this time, Li Jing came over. His cheeks were red. It was obvious that he had just been fed a lot by Timo. "Haha, isn't this our deputy Li who has a lot of talent, knows a little bit about everything, and can lip read a bounty of 4.22 billion. Big Grey Wolf turned his face sideways and said with a smile. I don't care about such things as fame and fortune. This thing can't prove anything. My reward is higher than yours. I'm still the deputy leader. My reward is higher than yours. Okay. Li Jing drew out his sword on the spot. "I'm going to open the sword now." "Why don't you open the sword? Keep going." Before Li Jing could finish speaking, he was suddenly pulled over by Thor to fight for a drink. Just when Big Wolf and Li Jing were bickering, Tren's mind was no longer on them, but focused on the system warehouse. After all, he had just completed 3 summoning missions, so he should get some good things. "Okay, let me take a look." With anticipation, Tren couldn't wait to open the system warehouse. 3 props appeared in front of him, namely overalls, engineering glasses, and Abao's concern. Seeing these props, Tren suddenly became excited, thinking that these must be some very powerful things. However, when he took a closer look at their introductions, the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Overalls. If you collect 7 Dragon Balls, you may not be able to summon the dragon, but if you collect all the overalls, engineering glasses, and yellow capsules, you can definitely summon the minions. Engineering glasses. If you collect 7 Dragon Balls, you may not be able to summon the dragon, but if you collect overalls, engineering glasses, and yellow capsules, you will definitely be able to summon the minions. Tren couldn't help but grit his teeth and cursed in his mind. What the hell is this setting? Are you already going to play synthesis now? It's never been so troublesome to crack down hard before. Then, he looked at the last prop, Abao's concern. You will have a real sous chef, Mr. Ping. This is not bad. Although Bai Xiong is very good at talking, he is always the last to enter every banquet. SpongeBob, the assistant chef, is a bit extreme. Thinking of this, Tren used it directly. Banquet table center. The 128th delicious crab burger. Keep up the good work. At this time, Po, with his mouth full of food, was competing with Gengar to see who could eat more. Well, typical, overestimating one's abilities. Why do you say that? Because there is already a Patrick star lying next to Po. Gengar just threw it into his mouth, but he didn't know where the food went, but the two of them actually ate it. I don't believe it. Abao was just about to stuff a cake, but a plain voice came from behind him. Abao, I saw Mr. Ping, who had a hairstyle like ramen noodles on his head and was dressed in guayi, smiling, with kind fatherly love in his eyes. Dad. Abao spit out what was in his mouth, then rushed forward with a thought on his face, picked up Mr. Ping, and ran around wildly. Abao is a little too excited. Tren looked at this scene, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, showing a smile, but it quickly disappeared. Suddenly, as if he realized something, he turned his head sharply and looked at Big Wolf with sharp eyes. When Big Gray Wolf saw this, he frowned slightly and asked in confusion, "What's wrong, Captain?" After a moment of silence, Tren said, "Don't you think someone is missing?" After hearing this, Big Wolf also began to look around and think. The entire banquet scene was still very lively, and everyone was immersed in the joyful atmosphere. However, Tren felt a strange sense of calm. This kind of excitement seems to lack the participation of some key figures. It is lively, but there is something wrong with it. This made Tren couldn't help but think deeply. After a while, Tren suddenly opened his eyes and said as if he had a sudden realization, "Tom and Jerry." Oh, Big Wolf suddenly realized, and said without any worry, "They are indeed not back yet. I don't know where they went." At the same time, in New World, on an unknown island in a certain sea area, Jerry and Tom were quarreling. Jerry said calmly, "I have a hunch that we will definitely find the right direction this time." However, Tom disagreed and laughed at him and said, "Haha, it's been all the way, your premonitions are always wrong. This time is different. Trust me, Tom." Jerry firmly believed in his judgment and emphasized, "This time we should go south, it is definitely right." "How do you want me to trust you?" But Tom was stubborn and retorted, "Listen to me now, you should go north." "Tom, I don't want this." Jerry's face became serious. He slowly raised his eyes and stared at Tom. "You're not good at sense of direction. You are preaching to me." Tom looked directly at Jerry with stern eyes without fear. "I don't want to tell the truth, Tom. But you have to listen to me." "Ha ha ha, I can understand that." Tom laughed. "You mean, you can defeat me at any time?" Jerry. "If this must be the case." Finally, the two of them shouted at the same time, "Then let's do it right there." On the other side, not far away, CP, who was silently monitoring Jerry and Tom, looked at Zuo Spike and Woodstyle's cousin, and silently picked up the phone. "Well. Yes, it was me. They started fighting again after flying less than a few hundred meters. It is estimated that this island will be delisted soon. This is already the 8th island. I suspect they did it on purpose." "Ah, you ask me why. Because they were praising each other while fighting. They even shouted very loudly." Chapter 204, The 15th Partner. Advertise here. I originally ruled an extremely huge empire. Everything in that country was so beautiful, and I also had endless power. However, just when I thought I had everything under control, my subjects betrayed me. They deprived me of my abilities by dividing them in a way that I find extremely disgusting. I was imprisoned and turned into an ancient and useless stone sculpture. Everyone knows that those so-called noble dragons and demon wizards have never been trustworthy. Therefore, except for the trustworthy leader, I cannot trust anyone's words. This time is different. I don't lack anything. Now, I want to show the world my true strength. Holy Lord, appear. Wangguo, Cake Island, top floor. After the dessert banquet, Troon and his gang drove the Black Pearl to collect the so-called apology gift. The aunt's unknown children are responsible for arranging accommodation for other guests. However, most of these guests are eager to leave the place as soon as possible. Although Big Mom finally bowed to the Tren adventure group at the dessert banquet, her previous fierce verbal conflict with Tren's group still shocked and disturbed many people present. For those with noble status and prominent status, life is undoubtedly the most precious wealth. Therefore, they are eager to stay away from the threat of Big Mom and ensure their own safety. However, Due to Auntie's great reputation, these guests had no choice but to choose to stay temporarily on Cake Island and wait to attend the next wedding banquet. Although their hearts were full of dissatisfaction and worry, they were helpless in the face of Auntie's powerful strength. After all, no one wants to easily provoke this terrifying one of the four emperors. At this moment, in the hall of Auntie's palace on Cake Island, Perospero had just returned from Lockmit's Island and went to see Auntie immediately. As soon as he entered the hall, he immediately noticed that the atmosphere was abnormal. I saw the aunt sitting high in the main seat, her eyes and face looking very gloomy. Katakori's expression on the side was also ugly, but Owen and Dafu rushed to the Cake Island in a hurry, regardless of their unhealed injuries. Apparently, the two of them had reported Tom's masterpiece to Katakori. In addition to these people, there are Charlotte Opera, Cracker, Monder, Smoothie Sisters, Charlotte Zickert, Charlotte Comper, Charlotte Shibster and Charlotte Mobile, etc. Children who appeared at the dessert party. There is also a young woman with a height and appearance closer to normal people, with pink hair, yellow eyes, lipstick, and fair skin. A woman wearing red gloves, a red skirt, red high heels and a purple cloak, with brown decorations on her hair. Brother Perospero. Garrett smiled and nodded at Perospero. The 18th daughter of the Charlotte family, Butter Minister Charlotte Garrett, Paramesha. Butterfruit Power User, Bounty, 320 million belly. It can be said that Charlotte Garrett is one of the few beautiful and normal women in the Charlotte family. Garrett, are you here too? Perospero looked at this posture and couldn't help but feel uneasy in his heart. All the children with some power in the family gathered here, and as soon as he entered the hall, he felt his younger brothers and sisters standing on the surrounding steps, staring at him with the eyes of scrutinizing prisoners. Despite this, he still nodded to the aunt and said, Tren and his gang have received the apology, and are now staying on Lockmit's Island. Mom. The aunt muttered her catchphrase in a low voice, then stared at Perospero closely and asked, if I want to kill Jenny Tren, do I still have a chance? Hearing these words, Perospero's pupils trembled suddenly, and coupled with the looks of his younger brothers and sisters, he felt even more stressed. He gritted his teeth and replied, Mom, are you really planning to take action against Tren and his gang? Why not? They must have the historical text of Shanks in their hands. Auntie said, and suddenly added, Kaido woke up. The Beast Pirates. Perospero understood Big Mom's thoughts. He must know that Kaido fought with Tren and his gang before the war. Although no one knows the battle process, Kaido, the beast known as the strongest creature in the sea, land and air, has only woken up now, which can prove everything. Mom, if you want to cooperate with Kaido, there is indeed an opportunity. He decided to express his views frankly, because the current situation was beyond his control. He understood that his younger brothers and sisters were dissatisfied and that his mother was eager to save face. After thinking for a moment, Perospero raised his eyes and said calmly, however, we need to spread out the Tren Adventure Group. They are too powerful together. This has been verified in Marinavando. In addition, there is a person named Sword Demon Li Jing. There was a hint of fear in his voice, and he seemed to have special attention to this person. Sword Demon. The aunt frowned. Is a swordsman worthy of her eldest son's respect? She was very confused about this. I have investigated everyone, and this Sword Demon is the most unique, Perospero explained. I found that as long as this guy has recorded battles he seems to be able to defend against everything. Attack. Hearing this, the aunt couldn't help but be moved and murmured to herself, Masaka. As soon as Perospero said this, everyone was stunned. After all, this ability is too abnormal. After a long silence, the aunt slowly said, contact Kaido and see if he cares if I, an old woman, give him a chance to take revenge. Tren didn't know about the conversation between the aunt and her children. At this time, on Lockmit's Island, on the empty coast, several crabs were running quickly with their calves moving sideways. The calm waves gently lap on the beach, as if playing a peaceful symphony to this beautiful coastline. The bonfire last night has been extinguished, but the traces of the carnival are still clearly visible, as if telling the joy and passion of last night. On the deck of the Black Pearl, Tren took a deep breath of the fresh morning air and felt the salty smell brought by the sea breeze. He smiled and said to himself, phew. They say the early bird catches the worm, so this time. 100% summoning, adding in the bits and pieces before the dessert banquet, I didn't expect that I just had enough summoning opportunities. It just happened that at this moment, no one on the boat was awake, so he was ready to have a wave of early birds. Don't let me down. Thinking of this, Tren touched the red and swollen left side of his face. Captain, Xiao He really didn't mean it. It was you who said, if you can't wake me up, then use force. You can't betray your promise. Tren stepped on a fishing rod with Xiao He hanging on it. Tren ignored Xiao He's yelling and clicked the summon button instead. A magic circle appeared for a moment, but the range surrounded the Black Pearl. Looking at this scene, Taren was stunned. Suddenly, in the magic circle, deep in the ancient and mysterious palace, a breathtaking huge sculpture appeared in front of him. I saw a lifelike giant dragon, its body winding and circling flying out. The scales on the dragon's body shone with a cold light, each piece was carved extremely finely, and the edges of the scales were as sharp as blades, reflecting a chilling light in the faint light. The giant dragon's huge body began to circle around the Black Pearl. The dragon's body was closely attached to the ship, its claws clung to the side of the ship like iron hooks, and its sharp nails were deeply embedded in the wood, leaving shocking traces. It seemed to be guarding and controlling the fate of this ship. For a time, the Black Pearl, which was originally huge or a bit strange, was filled with a mysterious and solemn aura. On the vertical board in the center of the deck, a dragon's head emerged from it, and he spoke in a distant and calm voice. Long time no see, my leader who has never been deceived by me. Name: Holy Lord from the Adventures of Jackie Chan. Abilities: 12 talismans, demonic power. Strength: the Holy Lord who lacks nothing is very powerful. Chapter 205 Interesting Things in the Morning. Advertise here. After half the morning light, everyone on the Black Pearl also walked out of their rooms one after another, and the deck that had been quiet for a while became lively again. In the craftsman's room, the sound of Orn's forging was booming. Steve sat quietly at the workbench with a calm face, carefully drawing the drawings required for some modifications of the Black Pearl. Steve, this needs to be redrawn. It's easier to forge and melt. Alan is not very reticent about what he is good at. Indeed, but it should be easy to get some special tools if you go to Big Wolf to borrow them. Looking at Orn's point, Steve touched his chin. The creation dimension of Black Pearl is quite high and I want to strengthen the transformation. Even for a master craftsman like Orn and a natural creation like Steve, it is difficult to start for a while, so I have to do it step by step. Dormitory area on the upper floor of Craftsman House. Thor's room was filled with a rich aroma, and under the warm light, his long orange hair fell on his shoulders like a waterfall. She sat on the edge of the bed and bent down gracefully, gently pulling up the white stockings with her fingers and putting them on her calves. The white stockings outlined perfect curves, making Thor's legs even more slender and charming. Thor walked lightly on the wooden floor with his stocking-lined feet. He walked to the closet and opened the door. There were various gorgeous maid outfits inside. Looking at the loose nightgown with a picture of Tren on it, Thor gently took off his clothes, revealing his exquisite figure. Looking at the photo of Tren on the nightgown, Thor's mouth showed a smile, his amber eyes flashed with gentle light, and then he buried his face. Damn it. After a while, he slightly raised his amber vertical pupils, his face turned red, and he couldn't help but muttered, the same goes for the leader, who actually locked the door last night. After a moment of reflection, Thor began to put on the maid uniform, and every detail was done to perfection. When the last button was buttoned, she opened the door gently, and a gust of wind blew in her face. Figures in 3 colors, white, yellow and pink, passed quickly in front of them. It was Tuanzi, SpongeBob and Patrick Star. You 3, don't run around in front of our room. Thor shouted. Sorry, Sister Thor, we are playing a chasing game. SpongeBob's unique voice came, and then the laughter became smaller and smaller, and it was obvious that he was not running anywhere. What? My wife is chasing me. Li Jing came out of the room, his hair usually neatly combed like a female ghost, wearing Hello Kitty's pink pajamas, and holding a pink pillow in the hand that usually held a sword. Wow, Abao, who was about to go to the kitchen to have breakfast, looked at this scene and blinked. PFF'd. Big Wolf beside Abao turned his head and chuckled. Li Jing looked at the scene he was in at this moment, swallowed his saliva, and felt no sleep at all. Then he sighed slightly, with an expression on his face to explain his funeral, and said softly to Big Wolf and the other 2. Tell the captain that I, Li Jing, will be his deputy captain in the next life. After saying that, Li Jing was about to run back to the room, draw his sword and kiss himself, but luckily Big Wolf and Abao had quick eyesight and quick hands. Li Jing, what I understand is that I just like colors and it's no big deal. Big Wolf hugged Li Jing tightly. For a moment, because Big Wolf hugged Li Jing, Abao didn't know where to grab him, so he had to grab Li Jing's waistcoat. That's not the case. Deputy Commander Li, Big Wolf is right, it's just the color, not even the underwear. You. As a result, with this grab, Li Jing's waistband was directly pulled open, and his sexy star shone for a moment. The 3 of them were all stunned, and the time was terrifyingly quiet. Ha! Suddenly, Abao let go of his hand and was bounced back by the waistband of Li Jing's trousers, making a crisp sound. Oh, I have this unknown girlish heart. ... In the botanical garden on the top of the ship, Sadako is wearing a straw hat and a pure white dress. Because the sea breeze was swaying, I couldn't help but hold down my straw hat with one hand and my dress with the other. It's starting again. Sadako stared at the blue sky with only a few white clouds with a smile on her face. Li Jing's voice reached the stern of the ship, which was a rare quiet area. Because Gnosis is an archaeologist, a library was opened behind the Black Pearl. There is also a sunshade board extending out from the upper edge of the library door. Ivy-like plants are spreading and twining on the board, and there are white tables and chairs below. Gnosis, dressed as an aristocrat and wearing a single lens under his left eye, held his hand in one hand and picked up the coffee in the other, taking a sip. A lively early morning. Gnosis sighed. At this time, Squidward, who was playing the recorder, walked away slowly. He sat on the chair next to Gnosis and picked up the coffee in front of him. This is our elegant tranquility. ... Back on the deck, Tuanzi, Patrick, SpongeBob and Timo all sat cross-legged. When the Holy Lord looks to the left, their heads will move to the left. If he looks to the right, their heads will also move to the right. For a time, the 4 pairs of eyes looked at the Holy Lord, who was stunned and couldn't help but cough. Don't look at me like that, you have something to say. Patrick, ask him if he wants to go down and have breakfast together. SpongeBob whispered. Ahem, I can hear what you are saying. The Holy Master said calmly. When Patrick heard this, he took out a delicious crab burger from his crotch and said, Do you want to eat it? No, thank you. Looking at this kind of thing, the Holy Master refused without thinking. How could Patrick eat something from his crotch? It's impolite, SpongeBob said. As that's so, Patrick directly stuffed it into his mouth, and then said while eating, but he is not a human either. It seems so. Holy Lord, you can't just believe it. Timo stood up. He was just here to reminisce, and now he was going to take over from Gengar. So, you are a bad guy. SpongeBob's eyes widened. When the Holy Lord looked at these 2 guys, he was also teasing, so he said, No, I am a good person. The reason why I am said to be bad is just that the grand vision I showed to others cannot be realized by themselves. Quote. Explanation. I draw cakes for others and they can't eat them, so you can't blame me. So you are a good person. SpongeBob frowned. Of course. The Holy Lord smiled, just thinking of teasing SpongeBob and the 2. Before he could speak, SpongeBob was the first to answer. What should I do if the first guest in the good guys course picks up someone else's wallet? Patrick throws out the wallet. Pi Daxing threw the wallet out. The Holy Master used the floating charm of the chicken to make the wallet float, and said calmly, I think this is the wallet you dropped. This doesn't seem to be mine. Patrick shook his head. This is what you just threw out, Pi Daxing. The Holy Lord sighed. No, this is not mine. This is yours, I want to return it to you now. Give what back to whom? You are Starfish Patrick, and you just lost a wallet. That's right, I remembered. Then this wallet is yours. No, this is not mine. Holy Lord. There is a feeling of powerlessness in the face of a fool. Patrick, you'd better take your wallet back. SpongeBob said softly, looking at the wallet that was starting to wrinkle due to the Holy Lord's temper. Why, SpongeBob, you all said this wallet is mine, but did any of you see me losing my wallet? SpongeBob, Holy Lord, oh, forget it, why bother competing with Patrick Star? The Holy Master cancelled the ability of the chicken talisman himself, and the wallet fell back to the ground. Yeah, this is my wallet. Patrick picked it up and then looked at the Holy Lord. There are really no good people nowadays. Even though my wallet is right in front of them, they won't pick it up and return it to me. What Timo said is absolutely correct, you. Before Patrick could finish speaking, his head was suddenly grabbed by a big hand. It turned out that the Holy Lord came out of the riser. SpongeBob, I'm going to use the bathroom, you go have breakfast first. SpongeBob, help me. Patrick, it's okay, it's only a few minutes. Looking at Patrick being dragged away, SpongeBob looked distressed, but his feet did not move a step. Chapter 206 Kaido wakes up. Advertise here. New World, just south of Wano, the headquarters of Kaido's beast pirates, Onigashima. Viewed from a distance, Onigashima looks like a giant skeleton. When approaching Onigashima, you can clearly see that this skeleton is not in the shape of a building or a mountain, but a real giant skeleton. The pear-shaped hole under the nose bone is very clear, and the teeth are also well preserved. It is obvious that this is the skull of an extremely large giant. There are also huge horns on both sides of the skull, which are quite similar in shape to the horns on Kaido's head. At the entrance of Onigashima to Kaido's residence, there is a katana that is almost as high as the skull. The handle and part of the blade are exposed above the ground, but it is difficult to estimate how long the part buried underground is. This makes Onigashima look like the giant's sword mound, or it itself is an island formed from the giant's bones. It was only later that Kaido built on it to a certain extent and it became the ghost island it is today. In addition, the island is surrounded by mountains, with this huge skull in the middle, and inside the skull is Kaido's castle. There are mountain paths on both sides of the skull and between the mountains, with a total of 4 entrances. The front is the entrance formed by the skull's mouth. From the mountain path on the left side of the skull, you can enter the skull through the outline of Black Maria. There is a city gate on the mountain path on the right side of the skull. You can also enter the skull after passing through the city wall. There are also 2 back doors on the back of the skull's head. At this time, many cadres of the beast pirates rushed towards the inside from the 4 entrances. Onigashima Interior Castle Hall. There may be huge pirate flags and various trophies hanging on the walls, showing the majesty and strength of the beast's pirates. At this time, Kaido of the 100 Beasts was sitting on his majestic throne with a gloomy face. Who is he? One of the New World 4 emperors, Hyundai Beast. Kaido, the governor of the beast pirates, is also known as the strongest creature in the world. Now he looks like an old man with a white beard, his body is covered with medicine needles, and there are hanging bottles all around his huge and muscular body. Although his body has recovered from the serious injury caused by Steve from the Tren Adventure Group, the anger in his heart has not been extinguished. Asshole, do you think I'm Whitebeard? Kaido waved his left hand and tore off all the medicine needles on his body. Even the nurse from Wano country was swept aside by this powerful force. It's just a minor injury, but Kaido was about to get up when suddenly, his left chest and shoulder was where Steve's arrow hit him. A feeling of pain that penetrated his bones almost made Kaido shout out. Kaido broke out in a cold sweat while flashing through his mind Steve's downcast eyes and the words, "Falling Dragon." Immediately afterwards, he fainted and returned. On his royal chair, the nurses around him also became busy. I don't know how long it took, but when Kaido opened his eyes again, he turned into what he looked like just now, but in the hall, the cadres of the beast pirates were almost gathered together. Kaido didn't move this time. He lay down on the chair and looked sideways at his lower left side. The figure was well proportioned, tall and strong. His whole body, including his face, was usually covered in pitch-black clothes. He wore a mask, goggles and a helmet, and a black double-breasted suit with two skulls on his collar. The man wearing black gloves, with decorations on his arms and legs, a long knife hanging on his waist, and flames surrounding his head asked. Jin, what's the matter? The first of the three major disasters of the beasts, fire disaster, Jin, the animal type, dragon fruit, ancient species, pteranodon form ability, the bounty is 1.39 billion belly. Captain, Big Mom knows that you are awake and has sent an invitation to form an alliance. Jin whispered Kaido. After all, Kaido has been in a coma for almost a year. Boss, we have to think carefully about this invitation from the Big Mom pirates to form an alliance. Drought Jack said from the side. Kaido frowned, his eyes flashing with displeasure and vigilance. Forming an alliance. It's not that simple. That old woman. Tell me, for what purpose? His voice was low and powerful, as if it carried an irresistible majesty. Drought Jack took a deep breath, and then said slowly, she invited us to fight against the Tron Adventure Group. They have the historical text of the red-haired Shanks, which we share, as well as the territory of the Tron Adventure Group, such as Rocky Port, etc. After listening to Jack's words, Kaido's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a look of contemplation. How could the historical text of Shanks be in the hands of Captain Tren? Bastard. Who do you think Shanks is? That's even. However, at this moment, Jack suddenly interrupted him. Shanks is dead, the red-haired pirates have been destroyed, boss. Upon hearing this, Kaido's pupils shrank suddenly, and an expression of shock and disbelief filled his face. He stared at Jack, trying to find some clues on his face. But soon, he withdrew his gaze, regained his composure, and just said lightly, tell me. What happened during the time I was in coma? Next, Jack briefly told Kaido about the war. So, Captain Tren has become the second Whitebeard, the strongest in the world. Kaido chuckled. You can say that. Jack nodded, because the Kaido beast pirates had been so low-key this year that they almost faded out of sight. So, boss, do we want to form an alliance? Tren Adventure Group. Kaido frowned. At this time Jin stood up and said, Captain, looking at the benefits, if we allege with the Big Mom pirates, our strength will indeed be greatly enhanced. Big Mom, that old woman has many capable people. If we join forces, we will be more confident in dealing with the Tren Adventure Group. Quote. But, boss, Quinn shook his big head at this time, there are disadvantages to this. Big Mom is not a fuel-efficient lamp. After forming an alliance, if she wants to take the opportunity to swallow us up, it will be troublesome. Moreover, how to solve the issue of command authority? Who should listen to it? This could become a quarrel among themselves. Quote. Kaido slammed the armrest. That's right. Our beasts pirates cannot be led by others. The 6 Lincoln disciples on the side also started talking about it. That's the Tren Adventure Group. Can we really defeat them? Another echoed. Yes, but if you form an alliance with Big Mom, I'm afraid she will plot against you. I heard that the pseudo-general on board the Tren Adventure Group is said to be as powerful as the 3 Marine generals. Even Jack was gutted by that sword ghost's sword. Even the captain. Hearing this and the following discussion becoming more and more outrageous, Kaido finally couldn't help but stand up and shouted loudly, quiet. The hall instantly became silent. Afterwards, Kaido calmed down and ordered, first send some people to investigate the situation of the Big Mom pirates and see what they are planning. In addition, I have woken up the Tren Adventure Group. Sooner or later this account will have to be settled with them. Chapter 207 Alliance, Pattern. Advertise here. Tot Kingdom, Cake Island. At this time, the ant was sitting at the dining table, eating cake. That guy Kaido said that. Looking at Perospero walking in from the gate, the ant stopped what she was doing and stared at her eldest son. The beast pirates didn't agree immediately. They might be thinking about something. Perospero said cautiously. When it comes to his mother, Perospero has his own way of speaking, which is to keep your mouth shut. After all, the response from the beast pirates was indeed, consider. That Kaido guy, it's best to agree to an alliance quickly. Otherwise, I will go back and deal with him after I deal with the Tren Adventure Group. The ant said harshly, and then continued to stuff cakes into her mouth. Mom, forming an alliance is not something you agree to casually. There was no one else in the room at this time, only himself and his mother, and Perospero was also ready to state his interests. After hearing Perospero's words, the ant's face instantly darkened. Her eyes became sharp, staring at Perospero closely, as if she wanted to see through him. Perospero, what do you mean? Do you still want me to go to Ghost Island to beg that guy in person? Auntie roared angrily, and during her words, her conqueror's domineering energy burst out, like an invisible force. Pressure enveloped the entire space. Hearing Auntie's roar, Perospero's expression changed. He knew Auntie's temper. If he didn't answer well, he might be severely punished by Auntie. So, he quickly knelt down and explained, "No, Mom." However, he didn't realize that his movements were too fast, even faster than Big Mom's conqueror's hockey burst. Seeing Perospero's performance, the aunt frowned slightly, but she did not attack immediately. After all, Perospero is also her son and one of the important members of the Big Mom Pirates. Therefore, the aunt decided to give him a chance to explain. Perospero knelt on the ground, his forehead pressed to the ground, not daring to raise his head to look at his aunt. But he moved his mouth quickly to express his thoughts. Mom, who will lead the decision-making after the alliance is formed, and how to balance the opinions and interests of both parties. These issues require our careful consideration. If we cannot solve these issues, then the alliance will become very difficult and may even lead to failure. Quote. The aunt listened quietly to Perospero's analysis, her expression gradually softened. Although she was a little dissatisfied with Perospero's performance just now, she had to admit that Perospero's analysis made sense. Seeing the change in his aunt's attitude, Perospero secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that he had successfully convinced the aunt and made her start paying attention to this issue. Next, he just needs to continue working hard and come up with better solutions to satisfy Auntie. First of all, the alliance between the two four emperors will inevitably attract the attention and reaction of other forces. Mother, although Shanks and Whitebeard have passed away, the current structure of the new world is not dominated by our three families Tron, Big Mom, and Kaido. Not to mention Jenny Tron, just talking about the Blackbeard pirates who have made trouble in the past year is a headache. There are devil fruits worth 100 million belly in the outside world. As long as you join Blackbeard, he will provide them according to your needs and even give you a place to live. Because of this, the number of Blackbeard's cadres increased greatly, and they began to crazily encroach on Whitebeard's marginal territory, mainly because they were afraid of Tren and did not dare to touch the core area easily. There are even rumors that Blackbeard is even trying to apply to become a member of the world government. In addition, the Chinliangdaohua Buggy should not be underestimated. Although he has joined the Shichibukai, his subordinate's power is growing day by day. Many former affiliated pirate groups of the red-haired pirates chose to join him due to their early experiences with the red-haired Shanks. It can be said that of the two of them, one is plundering Whitebeard's marginal legacy, and the other is inheriting the red-haired power. What's more, there's a marine who just inserted himself into the new world and is looking at him with eager eyes. Blackbeard Clown Buggy, Marine. After hearing Perospero's words, the aunt suddenly reacted. Yes, ever since Red Hair and Whitebeard died in the battle at the top, Marine was seriously injured, Kaido was in a coma, and Tren and his gang have become like fun people again. She had always thought that her Big Mom pirates were the most powerful, but now that Perospero said this, she was indeed a little happy and even prepared to strengthen her strength through marriage. Seeing his aunt deep in thought, Perospero breathed a sigh of relief and then struck the railroad while it was still hot. Mother, there is also an alliance between us and Kaido, so the division of labor in combat also needs to be considered. Even if the Tren Adventure Group is successfully defeated, the distribution of post-war benefits, such as territory, treasures, etc., still needs to be planned in advance to avoid another conflict with the Beast Pirates after victory. Quote. Of course, there are actually things like Big Mom's own personality and behavior style. Big Mom is irritable and unpredictable, Kaido is a pure fighting maniac, arrogant, etc. Perospero didn't say it. After all, if he said this, he would never get out. Seeing that Perospero stopped talking, the aunt sighed deeply. Perospero. Here you are, mother, replied Perospero. The aunt looked at her eldest son carefully. Although she had long forgotten who Perospero's father was, she must admit that her eldest son was very smart. Since he was a child, he has known how to balance the relationship between himself and other siblings, which makes his aunt very satisfied. Moreover, Perospero not only possesses wisdom and leadership, but also has keen insight and calm thinking ability, which makes him the most suitable successor in Auntie's heart. In contrast, although Monder is also somewhat clever, he still seems immature compared to Perospero. Auntie knew very well that if something happened to her, Perospero might be good. That's not true, the aunt sighed to herself, because if she really wanted to fight the Tren Adventure Group, Charlotte Linlin really needed to be prepared to die, because she didn't think she was much better than the red-haired Shanks. You're fine, go out. Auntie waved her hand, you are fully responsible for the next alliance. Yes, mother. Perospero nodded, then turned and left. After Perospero left, Auntie took out a black and white photo from Zeus's body, with rocks, Kaido, himself, and Whitebeard on it. It's begun. Auntie murmured to herself. The waves of the sea are still rough, and the dispute between the old and new pirates has just begun. Chapter 208 Tranquility. Advertise here. The Big Mom pirates and the Beast pirates are actively communicating. And this period also ushered in the calm before the storm. The harbor of Lockmit's Island, the Black Pearl. Tom and Jerry are back, and their expressions are very comfortable. This moment of peace makes everyone feel that something is wrong. It's so quiet that it doesn't look like the two of them at all. On the front deck, Grey Wolf and Li Jing touched their chins almost at the same time and muttered to themselves. I saw Jerry flipping through the newspaper with his little hands, and a glass of orange juice beside him. When he saw something interesting, he would even laugh loudly, and pull Tom to watch together, and then the two of them would laugh together. If you are curious, I can use the soul to escape the shell, and wait for them to dream when they fall asleep to find the answer for you. The Holy Lord looked at Li Jing and Big Wolf firmly, with a hint of mystery in his voice. Forget it, I'm not curious about this. I don't want to be bothered by your deception. Big Wolf waved his hand in refusal without hesitation, then turned and left. Let me go to the craftsman's room and take a look. Maybe Orn and Steve need my help. Big Wolf said calmly, remaining cautious about the Holy Lord's words. The Holy Lord's promises are not trustworthy. He will never give them for free. Once he opens his mouth, there will be conditions or costs. Everyone on the ship knew these points well. Li Jing looked at Big Grey Wolf's retreating back, walked quietly to the Holy Master, leaned against the wall, and stroked his beard with his fingers. What's the matter? The Holy Master looked at Li Jing with a smile on his face. I remember that you were once known as the Demon Wizard and the Holy Lord. Li Jing said. Oh, why did you suddenly bring up this issue? A trace of interest flashed in the Holy Master's eyes. I don't know if it was a habit, but there was a bewitching tone in the Holy Master's voice. That's right, I used to be called the Omnipotent Demon Wizard. I can give you anything you want, Vice Tuan Li. The Holy Lord said, and 12 spells emerged. The power of life, the power of strength, the power of yin and yang, the power of speed, the power of explosion, the power of invisibility, the power of healing, the power of manifestation, the power of transformation, the power of levitation, the power of laser. The Holy Lord said with a hint of ridicule, showing Li Jing the dog talisman among the many talismans. Even the power of eternal life is not impossible. Ah, this kind of thing is useless. Li Jing waved his left hand, as if sweeping away 12 useless chess pieces. No. Seeing Li Jing's action, the Holy Master did not react for a moment, and Li Jing was already close to his ear. Wait. The Holy Lord suddenly became alert, like a cat that was awakened. Although I am on the wall, I can still come out. What the hell? Li Jing interrupted. I just want to ask, is there any way you can erase, that is, this morning, a certain memory of Big Wolf and a bow? Morning memory. Oh, it's you wearing pink. Before the Holy Master could finish speaking, his mouth was pinched by Li Jing. As for why it's not covered. Because the dragon's mouth is relatively long. How do you know? Big Grey Wolf can't be so idle. Li Jing gritted his teeth and said with an annoyed look on his face. Even though the Holy Master's mouth was pinched, it did not affect his speech at all. He only saw the Holy Master's eyes glancing to the left, here. Li Jing followed the Holy Lord's gaze and saw a fat black and white panda sitting in front of the 3 generals of Bikini Castle, vividly describing what he saw and heard in the morning. Pink. SpongeBob opened his mouth. Diamonds. Patrick looked at his shorts. It can still flash. Brother Squidward had the best expression. That's right, I'm only telling you 3, you must not tell others. Abao whispered. Wait. Seeing Poe's expression, Squidward was the first to react. What's wrong? Brother Squidward. Abao turned to look at Brother Squidward in confusion. Who else did you say that to? Captain, Steve, Sister Sadako, Dad. Oh. It seems like you 3 are the last. Poe counted with his fingers. Oh, my god, another stupid guy. Squidward covered his face. Just when Poe was curious about why Squidward was like this, a very gentle voice came from behind him. Abao. This sound made Abao's whole body feel as if he was electrocuted. Then he turned his head slightly, looked at Li Jing who was wiping his sword with a gentle smile, and swallowed. Tell Dad, you don't have to prepare my meal tonight. Abao instantly jumped off the boat and ran towards Lockmit's island. Don't leave, you evil beast. Li Jing followed immediately. Today, Mr. Li, I will do justice for heaven. ... At the same time, inside the loot storage point. What's the sound? Tren, who was looking at his collection beautifully, frowned, but his eyes quickly moved back. My current collection of weapons is the 2 sharp swords of Golden Lion, Sakura Ju, and Deadwood. The superhuman types of devil fruits include Piao Piao fruit, Fengfeng fruit, Bobo fruit, Yin Yin fruit, Mian Mian fruit, and Menmen fruit. Logia. Thunder fruit. There are already a lot of Paramesha, but Logia is still too different from the animal type, so it's a bit imperfect. Tren frowned and looked at the devil fruits sorted by type in the glass cover. Also, last time I knew better and put away the ace and griffin in Shank's hands. I was careless at the time. Thinking of this, Tren also sighed. Then he shook his head and clicked out the system warehouse. Because he summoned the Holy Lord, he got the props as expected. Yellow capsule. If you collect 7 Dragon Balls, you may not be able to summon the dragon, but if you collect overalls, engineering glasses, and yellow capsules, you will definitely be able to summon the minions. Overalls. If you collect 7 Dragon Balls, you may not be able to summon the dragon, but if you collect all the overalls, engineering glasses, and yellow capsules, you can definitely summon the minions. Engineering glasses. If you collect 7 Dragon Balls, you may not be able to summon the dragon. But if you collect overalls, engineering glasses, and yellow capsules, you can definitely summon the minions. Minions. I don't know how many there are. Looking at these 3 props, Tren silently clicked on the synthesis. I saw the yellow capsule suddenly put on overalls and engineering glasses, and transformed into a cute little yellow man. Minions. So you can summon a team 5 of minions. Warm reminder. Minions can defeat the boss, not the enemy's boss, but their own boss. Chapter 209 Minions. Advertise here. Does that mean you can kill me? Looking at the introduction of the original minion props, the corner of Tren's mouth trembled unconsciously. No, because I've seen it too. Even though it's a joke, it was a group of minions at that time, and it's only one team that must be fine, right? System after sales explanation. The right to use props does not matter. Forget it. Looking at this horizontal text, Tren did not intend to count on this weak system that did not dare to make trouble under severe crackdowns. Perhaps guessing Tren's inner murmur, the system directly typed a sentence of quality English from the side. Open black lens bracket funny mud go p close black lens bracket. Tren, you really don't want to listen to the voice, do you? Tren closed the system interface directly, then held the small, original minion between his left index finger and thumb and squinted his eyes to look at it. Then again, I have it all. Thinking of this, Tren directly ejected the original minion using props. Original minion rotated in the air, and then exploded the moment it touched the ground, followed by a burst of yellow smoke. Banana. La. I saw 6 minions in overalls appearing in front of me in various funny poses. The difference between them lies in their height, body shape, fatness and thinness. If you have to find something special. That is, the minion standing at the front only has one eye. Just as Tren was staring at the minions were also staring at Tren, shouting in unison, "Boss." Suddenly, the one-eyed minion shouted loudly, pointing his finger at Tren, and his shout seemed to be in order. The other 5 minions also shouted together and ran straight towards Tren. No, wait a minute, bang. Before Tren could finish his words, he just moved his left foot back a small step, but suddenly he felt something like it was as slippery as oil, and the whole person lost his balance instantly. Immediately afterwards, before he had time to react, he was happily lifted up and taken away by 6 minions. Black Pearl, front deck. On the observation deck, Timo and Gengar poked their heads curiously, their eyes full of expectation. There is a table next to the guardrail on the second floor of the deck, filled with various fruits and iced juices. Thor sat leisurely on the chair, holding his chin with his left hand, crossing his legs, with a faint smile on his face. Opposite him, Sadako was wearing a dress as white as snow, smiling and quietly watching everything in front of her. It turned out that Tom and Jerry were bored for a while and actually started playing role-playing games. I saw Tom put a wooden stick on his left waist from somewhere, and he and Thor took a black cloth and put it on their backs, and also hid their left hand. Well, that's pretty redheaded. I saw Tom walking forward step by step, while Jerry, who used wood clone to create many extras, was lying on both sides as if he was stunned by the domineering force. Red-haired Tom, what do you want to do? Jerry, pretending to be a white beard, lay on a chair and took a sip of juice. I'm here for discussion, please give me some face. Tom said calmly. Don't tell me, they are quite similar. Gnosis looked at the two of them, closed the books in his hands, and smiled. We are the real ones. At this time, the 3 generals of Bikini Castle, as the audience, joined in instantly, and their expressions and clothes changed very quickly. Justice is absolute. Ouch, that's so scary. It's so boring. Looking at the 3 generals of Beachburg, Gnosis frowned. They might look like this to others, but in Gnosis's eyes, these 3 guys looked like this. Boss, at this time, the minions carried Tren and rushed to the deck. Help me, Thor. Tren, who was carried out, looked up at Thor with a smile on the second floor guardrail. Okay. Looking at Tren, Thor took out the bananas from his fruit bowl. Banana. Sure enough, the minion saw the banana in Thor's hand, and his eyes lit up instantly, and Thor threw the banana directly into the hands of the big wolf who had just come out from the lower floor. Banana. Big wolf frowned as he looked at the banana falling from the sky into his arms. Before he could recover from his doubts, a burst of violent footsteps came. Banana. The minion ran straight towards big wolf. Damn. Big wolf sighed flatly, and then he was supported by the minions and left. Thank you for your hard work, Grey Wolf. But it's just right, the minions are good at research anyway. Tren stood up from the cold deck and said with a smile. There are now 3 legions on board the Black Pearl. Almighty, Shadow Army. Auxiliary platelets. Research-oriented open black lens bracket minions close black lens bracket. During this period, the Shadow Legion worked hard without complaint, and the platelets stayed on their toes. As for the minions. Captain, when will we start to rule the world? The Holy Lord looked at Tren and asked softly. Ruling the world. Haha. The Holy Lord's words directly made Tren's mind jump. Don't worry, I have experience. There was a hint of pride in the Holy Master's tone. Maybe. Tren leaned on the riser and smiled. Although the system will implant memories into the summoned partners, this implantation is uncontrollable. In the memory of the Holy Lord, he was summoned to help him rule the world. Therefore, apart from ruling the world, the Holy Lord has no interest in anything else. This is why even though he can appear in a complete form, he always likes to turn into a statue, quietly attached to the vertical plate in the center of the deck of the Black Pearl. No need, let's take it step by step slowly. I have full confidence in you, leader. The Holy Master stretched out a hand from the wooden board and gave a thumbs up. How should I put it? This scene still feels a bit awkward. Tren looked at the thumbs up from the Holy Lord and followed suit. The performance of Tom and others on the boat continues. Tren just watched quietly without any change in expression, just like an outsider, not involved, but not completely separated. Tom and the others enjoyed this wonderful time, and laughter filled the entire deck. At this moment, a seagull suddenly flew down on the side of the ship. It looked around curiously with its bright eyes, seeming to be very interested in what was happening in front of it. At the same time, the waves beat against the hull of the ship, making a crisp sound, as if to accompany the fun. People on the boat continued to laugh and play, everything seemed so harmonious, making people feel an indescribable happiness. Time passed by, the sun gradually set towards the west, and a golden afterglow appeared on the sea. The sea breeze blows gently, bringing the salty and humid smell of the sea to your face. At this moment, everyone forgot their troubles and worries. It was obvious that everyone came from completely different dimensions, but they were gathered together because of themselves. At this moment, everything becomes so beautiful. Chapter 210 Buggy the Clown. Advertise here. At the same time, the rough sea route, the windless zone. Next to this Amazon lily, which is not affected by any stormy weather and is surrounded by huge Poseidon nests. On a hidden island, Shanks is teaching Luffy attentively. The sea breeze blew by, ruffling Shanks' iconic red hair, but because of the same straw hat, Shanks raised his hand to suppress it. Luffy, remember, the road to becoming One Piece is full of challenges, but as long as you have a dream, nothing can stop you. I hope you get your straw hat back. Shanks retracted his hand and patted Luffy on the shoulder, his eyes full of encouragement and expectation. A year later, Shanks somehow installed a prosthetic leg to replace his missing foot. But the damage to his strength is certain, and this prosthetic leg only allows him to use crutches. Oh, Luffy nodded after hearing Shanks' teachings. This year, Shanks taught him how domineering Luffy's strength has improved very quickly. At the same time, I slowly emerged from the shadow of Ace's death. Luffy, come here for dinner. At this time, Jinbei came out of the sea and brought the purchased supplies. Because the Battle of Red Harbor, in Tron, the pirate Empress Boya Hancock did not completely fall in love with Luffy. She only heard that Luffy also beat the celestial dragons, so she took Luffy to impel down for this reason. Especially with the death of Rayleigh, the friendship between the Nine Snakes pirates has gradually faded. Shanks. At this moment, Hongo, who had returned with Jinbei, walked towards Shanks with a frown and handed Shanks the information he had collected outside. Are Big Mom and Kaido ready to form an alliance? This is not a good sign. Looking at the information in his hand, Shanks frowned and thought to himself. I heard that they are preparing to deal with Captain Tren. Hongo said calmly. Deal with him. Shanks's pupils trembled slightly, and at the same time, there was a dull pain from the stab wound on his chest and the prosthetic foot. The two of them are no match at all. Shanks, who had narrowly escaped death, would wake up every night thinking about Tren's eyes. Hongo, get ready, we have to go to New World. Thinking of this, Shanks said decisively. New World. A trace of doubt flashed across Hongo's face. Hongo, this may be an opportunity. If possible, maybe. Shanks' eyes were filled with murderous intent, and even conquerors could not control the expression. Everything about that man will be ruined. Shanks, you. When Hongo heard this, he couldn't help but feel a surge of blood in his heart. He knew exactly who the man Shanks was talking about and what it meant to them. Got it. Hongo nodded, without the slightest hesitation, and immediately began to prepare ships and supplies. Shanks went to explain some things to Luffy. I wonder if Ace's death stimulated Luffy. After the war on top, Shanks discovered that Luffy's sudden talent was terrifyingly high. He learns everything very quickly. If he can't do it by himself a few times, Luffy will learn it naturally. New World, formerly Lantiot Island, now Clown Island. Because of the presence of the Buggy Pirate group, this island is full of strangeness and absurdity, with strange buildings and noisy pirates everywhere. Especially after Buggy became Shichibukai, he even legally created the Buggy Express project. At this time, in the big tent in the center of Clown Island, Buggy is sitting on a pile of treasures, counting his treasures proudly. After becoming a Shichibukai, you really do everything that is legal and illegal. Especially since Marine doesn't interfere at all. Listening to Buggy's laughter, the corners of the mouths of the old and new cadres who were around him before and after he was imprisoned also raised their eyebrows. They even dressed a little extravagantly. Buggy. Bang. Suddenly a powerful conquerors poured into the tent, and everyone except Buggy's eyes turned white and they fell down. Everyone. Looking at the people who fainted one after another, Buggy could still react and saw a limping figure walking towards him at the entrance of the tent. You are. When he raised his head and saw Shanks, he was stunned. Shanks, you, aren't you dead? Buggy's eyes widened and he looked at the red-haired man in front of him in disbelief. Shanks smiled slightly and said, "Buggy," Sassy ignored Dana. Looking at Shanks' smile, Buggy stammered, "Marinbando, were you killed by Jenny Tren together with Rayleigh? What the hell is going on?" Seeing Buggy's surprised expression, Shanks stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. "It's a long story, but I'm still alive. Isn't that good?" Watching it up close, Buggy calmed down, and at the same time, the surprise in his heart was gradually replaced by doubt. "You are alive but have disappeared for a year. Why are you coming to me now? I don't have time to reminisce with you." Seeing Buggy regain his composure so quickly, Shanks couldn't help but sigh with emotion at his growth. He silently walked to the sofa nearby and sat down, slowly raised his eyes, his face became serious, and whispered, "Buggy, you have more or less news about the alliance between the Big Mom pirates and the Kaido pirates?" "Already no." Buggy shrugged, took out a handful of gold coins, and replied nonchalantly, "So what? What does this have to do with me? I only care about my treasure, and I just want to live my own free life." Shanks shook his head. "Buggy, you and I both know that no one can survive alone in this ocean." "What on earth do you mean, Shanks?" Buggy stared at Shanks closely, his eyes slightly narrowed, as if he wanted to see deep into his heart through his eyes. He was full of doubts and confusion about this friend of the same age who had come back from the dead. Tren Adventure Group. Shanks took a deep breath and slowly stated the purpose of this time. "Nani." After hearing the name, Buggy's face showed a look of astonishment, and his body split into several pieces due to shock. "Buggy, I need your help." Shanks looked at Buggy firmly, with a sincere light shining in his eyes. "Shanks, this is no joke, that's the Tren Adventure Group." Buggy's eyes widened, with a hint of fear and helplessness in his voice. "Now let Big Mom and Kaido do whatever they want. We should just live our lives well." Buggy hesitated. He knew Shanks' intentions, but he had participated in the war on the top and witnessed almost the entire battle. He is well aware of the terrifying strength of the Tren Adventure Group and the consequences of doing so. "Shanks, this is no joke." Buggy frowned and spoke again, his tone serious and serious. "Buggy, again, I need your help." Chapter 211 White Wolf with Empty Gloves. Advertise here. Looking into Shanks's calm and deep eyes, Buggy looked at each other for a while, turned his face and turned his gaze back to the treasure in front of him. There was a trace of complicated emotions in his eyes. "Shanks, since the Roger Pirates disbanded, we have taken different paths. I'm living a very happy life now and even become a Shichibukai with a lot of followers. The adoration they had for me was unbelievable," Buggy said proudly. At the same time, he looked around and saw his companions who were stunned by Shanks' domineering force. "If you hadn't been so merciful, I would be lying on the ground like them now," Buggy continued, with a trace of self-deprecation in his eyes. He is well aware of the gap in strength between himself and Shanks. Having said that, Buggy stared at Shanks' prosthetic limbs and the beheading scar on his chest, and couldn't help but sigh. "Although you survived, you also experienced a near-death experience. Or as I have guessed, it was Vice Captain Rayleigh who saved you. I know that you are a strong person with firm beliefs and an indomitable spirit. However, I am just an ordinary pirate, without your high ambitions and abilities." Quote. Buggy shook his head helplessly. "So, what help can you expect from me?" There was a sense of powerlessness in his voice. Although he and Shanks once had a common past, their status and pursuits are now very different. "Buggy," Shanks said softly, "the pirate group owned by Big Mom Pirate Group is very large. She has 39 daughters and 46 sons. Excluding some weak and young ones, there are no less than 10 pirate groups that can participate in the war. 40 PCs. Kaido's beast pirates should not be underestimated either. Apart from the 3 disasters, Flying 6 Cells and others, he also has more than 500 ability users who have been transformed by artificial devil fruits. But these are not enough, far from enough. If you want to deal with the Tren Adventure Group, this combat power cannot compete with them." At this point, Shanks's face became solemn. "Buggy, your clown pirate group has the largest number of people besides the 2 of them." "Of Shanks." Buggy suddenly shouted loudly, "Do you want my brothers to die in vain? You bastard. It's not just you. By then, Marine, World Government, Revolutionary Army and other forces will be involved." Shanks responded loudly. "What the hell do you want, Shanks?" Buggy asked angrily. "The captain was able to defeat the Rocks pirate group in the Valley of Gods and successfully killed Rocks. Why can't I do the same thing?" Shanks said with firm eyes, while taking out the ace from the 2 knives on his waist. Quote. Looking at Shanks, Buggy was silent, especially Ace's flashing cold light made him feel a little scared. "Although I did not participate in the battle at the Valley of the Gods, at least I know that Captain Roger can contain Rocks, but Shanks you." At this point, Buggy paused, and then continued, he's just an intern, so he's probably not strong enough to compete with Rocks." After saying this, Buggy stopped talking. After all, everyone present understood what it meant. Tren hits you like a child. Shanks was not angry after hearing this, but slowly raised his eyes, looked at Buggy and said, "If you are willing to help me, then I will help you too." Hearing this, Buggy frowned even more and asked doubtfully, "How do you want me to help you?" Shanks smiled slightly and said calmly, I need your pirate group. When Buggy heard this, he immediately shook his head and refused. No. It's absolutely not okay to let my people die in vain. Shanks seemed to have expected Buggy's answer, so he put forward another condition. I have received news that the world government member countries are already very dissatisfied with Shichibukai's system. If I am not wrong, the world government next year will abolish the Shichibukai system. Buggy's face changed after hearing this, and he said in surprise, Masaka. He is well aware of the benefits that the identity of Shichibukai brings to him. If he loses this identity, he will face a lot of trouble. Seeing that Buggy was shaken, Shanks continued, if you don't do something now, when the Shichibukai system is abolished, you will be nothing. Buggy fell into deep thought, wondering whether what Shanks said was credible. At this time, Shanks limped forward, his eyes firm and deep. He slowly said, I need a certain amount of power to negotiate with other guys now. If your clown pirate group helps me, after the matter is over, I will make you one of the 4 emperors. Hearing this, Buggy's eyes widened, and excitement and desire surged in his heart. 4 emperors. Buggy muttered to himself, with incredible excitement in his voice. His pupils were fixed on Shanks, as if he wanted to engrave this promise deeply in his mind. For Buggy, becoming the 4 emperors means endless glory, power and wealth and a firm foothold in the new world. This is the position that every pirate dreams of, and now Shanks has extended an olive branch to them. Shanks looked at Buggy quietly, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised, as if he had anticipated Buggy's reaction. You are still the captain of the Buggy Pirates. Hongo and I just joined your pirate group and used it as a bargaining chip in negotiations with other forces. You join my pirate group. Buggy did not agree immediately. He knew that there might be huge risks hidden behind Shanks' proposal. Shanks is not in a hurry, he believes Buggy will make the right choice in the end. After all, he has been quietly watching Buggy's rise from the beginning. From the beginning of teaching Luffy to all the subsequent events, everything was under his control. Even for Buggy to inherit the red-haired pirates, he personally arranged for Hongo to handle it. Now, his red-haired pirate group no longer exists, and his once trusted partners have also suffered misfortunes. Beckman was maimed by Dragon Servant Hall, Jesus Bu was shot, Rockiru had his hands cut off, and Lime Jones and Gabu were captured, while Bendik, Binji and Mengshida were killed on the battlefield. Except for Hongo, he lost almost all his capable officers. But if the clown pirates can join forces with Shanks, the situation will be very different. Don't underestimate the deterrent power of the large pirate group. Even the world government or marine dare not take it lightly when faced with such a powerful force. After all, not every group is a true adventure group. And today's Buggy pirate group and its many pirate groups will undoubtedly be his greatest help to Shanks. To put it bluntly, a typical empty-handed wolf. Chapter 212 Drake. Advertise here. Shanks conferring with Buggy on Clown Island on that remote ghost island. The alliance between Kaido and Big Mom is progressing quickly, and the two sides should almost discuss the distribution of interests and have almost finalized it. The second-floor corridor hall in Onigashima. This Perospero really doesn't give away any good things. The tall man who is over 3 meters tall has long legs, a pair of long horns on his head, wearing a red mask helmet and gold hoop earrings, with long pink hair reaching her waist and thick lips. The man with a dark tattoo of eyes and his name, Who, on his chest, wearing a red suit and trousers, and holding a long pink knife complained. One of the Flying Six cells, Foz Fu, nicknamed Floating Mo Fu. Cat fruit ancient species saber-toothed tiger form ability, with a bounty of 546 million Baileys. Close black lens bracket. It's the most troublesome thing to say hello to a guy like this. I don't know what the boss thinks. He asked me to take charge. Foz Fu complained impatiently. The upper part of his face, which was covered by a mask, was full of dissatisfaction and irritability. Okay, Fu, isn't it almost over now? How about we go to Flower Street together later? The man on the side said with a smile, trying to lighten the atmosphere. This man is tall, slightly fat, with sharp teeth, long green hair, a military cap with 2 horns on his head, a cape, a knife with him, and an orange flame-patterned double-breasted suit on his lower body. Buttoned culottes and wooden clogs. One of the Flying Six cells, Sasaki, animal type, dragon fruit, ancient species, Triceratops form, with a bounty of 472 million Baileys. Close black lens bracket. Foz Fu glanced at Sasaki and said angrily, yeah, it's almost over. I hope I won't encounter this kind of thing again. After saying that, there was a trace of expectation in his eyes, as if he was looking forward to it. What? Then I have to go, Black Maria's Yukaku. Sasaki. What's so fun about Flower Street? Foz Fu raised a wicked smile on his lips. As he spoke, he stretched out his arms to wrap his arms around Sasaki's neck, asked expectantly. How about it, Sasaki, do you want to play together? Hearing this, Sasaki quickly shook his head and replied helplessly, Black Maria's place is not good, it's too expensive. I can't bear to spend so much money. After speaking, he sighed softly, indicating that he was not interested in such a high consumption place. It's worth it. The last time we went out to experience the happy street, I didn't see you being so reluctant. Men are different outside. While the two were chatting, they suddenly found a person standing at the corner in front of them. The man stood against the wall, tall and mighty. His hooked nose is particularly eye-catching, one eye is covered by an eye patch, he wears a medieval-style swordsman's hat on his head, and there is a large axe tattoo on his chest. A four-edged axe and a long sword hung on his waist, and he wore a black single-eyed mask on his face. Foz Fu recognized this person at a glance. His eyes narrowed slightly and he whispered, "Hey, isn't this our fallen Major General?" There was a hint of disdain and ridicule in his tone. Hearing the voice, Drake slowly turned his head, his eyes cold and deep. Faced with Foz Fu's provocation, he just snorted lightly without making any response, then turned around and walked in the other direction. Sasaki looked at Drake's retreating back, and couldn't help but feel a surge of anger in his heart. He couldn't help shouting to Drake, "Hey, you guy, you have only been a member for a long time, and you really have no manners at all." However, Drake seemed not to hear his words at all and continued to walk on his own. What a coincidence that this guy showed up. Foz Fu looked at Drake's back, frowned, and felt a trace of doubt and vigilance in his heart. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised by Drake's appearance, and felt that it was not as simple as a coincidence. However, despite his doubts, Foz Fu did not immediately investigate further, but chose to continue leaving with Sasaki. Alas, on the other side, Drake secretly breathed a sigh of relief when he felt that the scrutinizing gaze behind him finally disappeared. He knew that Foz Fu was not someone to be trifled with, and once he was targeted, the consequences could be disastrous. Drake couldn't help but mutter to himself, "This guy is really troublesome." Foz Fu, born in North Blue, was an agent of CP9, a secret service agency directly under the world government. Later, he was imprisoned because he failed in the mission of escorting the rubber fruit. After being released from prison, he became a pirate. Therefore, among the beast pirates, Drake is the least willing to have too much contact with Foz Fu, for fear that his true identity will be exposed accidentally. The beast's pirates are about to form an alliance with the Big Mom pirates, and their target is actually the Tren Adventure Group. Drake knows the importance of this news, which is related to changes in the situation in the entire ocean. Although he remained calm on the surface, he had already begun to make calculations in his heart. He must find a way to pass this news to Marine headquarters as soon as possible so that they can take countermeasures. The ghost island shrouded in night is eerily quiet. Drake carefully shuttled between the shadows, looking for a safe place. Finally, he found a hidden corner to ensure that he would not be discovered by anyone. Then he activated the secret communications device that only he knew about. "This is the Sharp Blade. I have urgent information to report," Drake whispered, his tone serious and nervous. "Copy that." A low and calm voice came from the other end of the communication device, as if he had been accustomed to all this. "The Beast's pirates will join forces with the Big Mom pirates to fight against the Tren Adventure Group. They plan to attack at Charlotte Chiffon and Capone Becky's wedding reception." Drake reported quickly and clearly, his voice full of urgency. "Copy that." The other party's response was still as plain as water, but the determination contained in it made Drake feel a little at ease. Then, the communication device hung up, leaving Drake silent. He looked at the phone bug with his eyes closed, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of complicated emotions in his heart. The sea can never be calm. Marine, pirate, world government, revolutionary, haha. Drake left quietly and continued to blend into the darkness, waiting for the next action order. Chapter 213 Marine also wants to recreate the Valley of Gods. Advertise here. The Holy Land, Marie Joa, the familiar hall, the familiar 5 old men. The order of this world is led by the world government. Therefore, the world government can always be the first to obtain various intelligence information. This time, the information sent by Drake as a Marine undercover agent was not first presented on the desk of Marine Headquarters Agent Fleet Admiral Sengoku, but was placed on the table in the center of this spacious hall. Kaido and Big Mom are in contact and are preparing to form an alliance. Regardless of success or not, this is not good news for the world government's situation on the sea. Saint Garcia Satan sat on the sofa, but his eyes were tight. Locked tightly to the intelligence document on the table, he was obviously the last person to read this intelligence. That's true. However, if possible, we prefer them to stay dispersed rather than gather together. After all, the strength of the group of people under Jenny Tren is quite terrifying. Peter Saint said. After hearing the conversation between the two, combined with the current situation, Pumin Waokyu Lisheng couldn't help but recall the incident on the Island of Gods, and secretly sighed in his heart. I didn't expect that such a thing would happen again. Stop talking. Marcus Mars crossed his hands and said seriously, tell Sengoku that once the war begins, Marine must go all out to annihilate Tren's group. That's right. Garcia Satan suddenly raised his eyes and added, when it comes to Marine, I think the plan proposed by Sakazuki is very good. After all, there is already some chaos within Marine. Things like location. Let's wait until the immediate problem is solved before we discuss it. Zamburn v. Nastro-Sei looked down at the first-generation Kidetsu in his hand while recalling the time he had with him. Tom's fierce battle. Although I was a little unhappy, I was even more unhappy when I looked back and thought that the guy named Jerry hadn't taken action yet. If possible, we must not be merciful, because this group of guys is really troublesome. Nasho Langsheng said firmly. The other 4 people were stunned after hearing this. They knew that Nasho Langsheng was the only person who had ever fought against Tren's group, so what he said had a certain degree of credibility. New World, Marine Headquarters, New Marineland. At this time, the atmosphere in the Marine Headquarters building was so solemn that it seemed like it could drip water. An urgent piece of information and the attitude of the upper echelons of world government was sent to Fleet Admiral's desk. The content made everyone take a breath. The BIGMOM pirates and the only remaining members of the Beast Pirates, the 4 emperors, are actually preparing to form an alliance, and the target is directed at the Tren Adventure Group. This is really a big trouble. Warring States frowned and ordered. Gather all those who are still in the headquarters and above the lieutenant general level in the conference room. Hold an emergency meeting. Yes. The messenger at the door of the Sengoku Fleet Admiral shouted, and after a while, many Marines wearing justice cloaks headed towards the conference room. In the spacious and bright conference room, the atmosphere was solemn and depressing. Agent Fleet Admiral Sengoku sat at the head of the table, his hands crossed on his chin, his brows furrowed, his eyes deep and full of worry. Copies of the vital intelligence were distributed to everyone present. Have you read them all? Warring States raised his eyes and asked in a low voice, while looking around at everyone present. At this moment, the only generals in the conference room were Fujitora and Kizaru. The other generals were out on missions or had other arrangements. Among them, Green Bull is stationed in Marihoa and is responsible for acting as a lackey for the Celestial Dragons anytime and anywhere. Akainu and Aokiji are running around outside, working hard to achieve political achievements. Lieutenant General level figures include Tina, Dalmasi, Flying Squirrel, etc. In addition, the candidate for General Chief of Staff Kakusuru, also attended the meeting. However, surprisingly, Garp did not show up because he was busy dealing with matters related to Blackbeard. It is reported that this guy has been quite active recently, and there is even news that he has obtained Whitebeard's shock fruit ability. But we can't sit idly by. No matter what, the order at sea will be even more chaotic. Dalmasi said with a frown, knowing full well the possible consequences of this battle. This is no joke. 4 emperors joined forces to deal with a new 4 emperors. If we, Marine, intervene, what time should we choose? And, should we really get involved? Flying Squirrel asked in a calm tone. He believed that the battle between the pirates should be resolved by themselves, while Marine could sit back and watch the fight between the tigers and gain maximum benefits. But what if in the name of alliance, they are actually a 3-way cooperation, preparing to surprise Marine headquarters? Then wouldn't we be caught off guard? Tina raised another possibility. Impossible. Dalmexi immediately rejected the idea. It's not impossible. Don't forget, we suddenly intervened in New World, a paradise that originally belonged to pirates. The pirates are already dissatisfied with us. If we let them know that we plan to intervene in this battle, I am afraid it will cause even greater resentment. And resistance. Jaji echoed. For a time, the conference room was filled with various voices. Everyone was talking and arguing, and the atmosphere became extremely tense and intense. Quiet. Warring States shouted, and the noisy conference room instantly fell silent. At this time, he, as a staff officer, stared at Warring States and took the opportunity to say, "What is the attitude above?" Above. His words made the Marine present stunned for a moment. What is the attitude of the superiors? Will the superiors still let us help the pirates? But thinking of this, and Sengoku's constipated expression, all Marines seemed to have realized something for a moment. It seems that Vegapunk needs me to stay here for half a year. Kizaru, who had been cutting his nails, suddenly stood up. Pelusolino. Sengoku glanced at him. It seems I remembered it wrong. Kizaru sat back again and murmured, "How much is a monthly salary? Why are you risking your life?" Fujitora heard Kizaru's words and replied, "I received 250,000 belly last month." Hearing this, Kizaru turned his head and glanced at the blind man, pursed his lips. "Actually, there are subsidies for people with disabilities, but you haven't received them. They won't pay them if you don't tell them." This Porosalino. Sengoku sighed looking at this scene, and then said seriously. "What the world government means is that if possible, we can fully cooperate to destroy the Tren Adventure Group." As soon as this statement came out, there was another discussion at the scene, but Warring States ignored it. He was just the agent of Fleet Admiral now and had no authority over many things. This meeting was just to convey his intention. But as a former Marine Fleet Admiral, he still habitually added. After the meeting, intelligence personnel should be dispatched to collect as much information as possible about their alliance, including time, location, participants, etc. Yes, Fleet Admiral. Chapter 214. There are many ways to defeat them all. Advertise here. Thor's grapes are so delicious. Captain, even though I am a dragon, this girl can do anything. Tren was lying leisurely on the deck chair on the second floor of the Black Pearl, with the sea breeze blowing on his face, bringing a slight chill. The sun shines on the body, warm and comfortable. Tuor looked at Tren in front of his chest, and once again peeled open a big grape like a flower with dexterous fingers. "Come on, Captain, take another one," Thor said softly, with a smile on his face. Tren narrowed his eyes slightly, took the grapes, put them into his mouth and chewed them casually, enjoying the moment of tranquility and comfort. Shoo. Wait, it doesn't smell right. Tren suddenly felt something was wrong, and just rolled up, and Thor instantly applied a set of WWE standard chokeholds. His arms were as white and tender as half lotus roots. They were comparable to steel bars at this time, and his little hands were even more rigid. Covering Tren's mouth. Ooh, it's okay, leader, take a deep breath, slowly. On the deck, Timo slid down the rope from the observation deck and was about to get some snacks to eat. Looking at this scene, his eyes unconsciously turned to Li Jing, who pretended not to see it. Didn't you say that no one can hurt the leader as long as you are here? Really? Li Jing smiled slightly, and then raised his eyes slightly. When he saw Thor's glowing red dragon eyes, the hand holding the tea trembled slightly. Although it is said that no one can hurt the leader as long as Li is here, Thor is not a human. Oh, Captain, it's so uncomfortable. Timo spread his hands and sighed. Sister Sadako is better, gentle, considerate and kind, Sister Twoer is. Just when Timo got excited about talking, he didn't notice at all that Li Jing, who was originally trembling slightly, was shaking so much that he flew up. You. Flying Yordle, Gengar. On the observation deck, Gengar looked at Timo, who disappeared into the sky and blinked. At this moment, a candy pie-shaped warship suddenly appeared on the distant sea, sailing quickly towards the Black Pearl. Is it so elegant in broad daylight? Sparrow looked at the shooting stars in broad daylight and frowned on the anti-reconnaissance ship. Time passed by, and as the Big Mom reconnaissance ship gradually approached the Black Pearl, a figure jumped across the Big Mom reconnaissance ship and landed steadily on the deck of the Black Pearl. As soon as Sparrow stood firm, he couldn't wait to say in the direction of Tren, Captain Tren, are you there? His voice was full of respect for Tren. Hearing Sparrow's cry, Tron, who was pretending to be dead, couldn't help but feel a little doubt in his heart, but decided to go and see what happened. However, Thor on the side had already seen through everything. The corners of her mouth raised slightly, revealing a sly smile, and whispered to herself, Humph. Captain, lock it again tonight, hee. After saying that, she picked up the fruit plate on the table, glanced at Tren, and then he turned around and left. Seeing this scene, Tren, who originally wanted to continue pretending to be dead, quickly got up, walked quickly from the second floor to the deck, and came to Sparrow. He frowned and asked curiously, why are you here suddenly? Isn't the wedding banquet held tomorrow? Sparrow looked at Tren in front of him, and was stunned for a moment, then thought to himself, it seems that they really have never left Lockmit's Island. Then, with a deep apology on his face, he said softly, my mother's wedding banquet has been rescheduled tomorrow. When Tren heard this, his face suddenly became solemn, and he murmured to himself, rescheduled. Why did the date of the wedding banquet suddenly change? This is so strange. A bad premonition surged in his heart, and he always felt that something was wrong here. Thinking of this, Tren said directly, why did you change the date suddenly? Did an accident happen? Because my mother used to take all the main products of the island as an apology gift. As a result, we were unable to prepare a grand wedding banquet for a while, and my mother likes delicious desserts, so. Not enough materials. Sparrow nodded sheepishly and said, that's right. That's what my mother thinks. After all, a big wedding banquet is in line with my mother's wishes. And not only the date has been changed, but the location has also been changed to Puffy Town on Soft Island where my sister Charlotte Chiffon is stationed. I heard that it is going to be themed with chiffon cakes. Quote. Sparrow spoke to the extreme, and the main products of the islands of the 10,000 kingdoms really made Tren empty, so there is no problem. As for the location, Tren has been coming to the pirate world for many years and has heard of the reputation of the chiffon cake. It is normal for Auntie to have this idea. This is what my mother asked me to explain. Please forgive me for disturbing you. Captain Tren. After speaking, Sparrow bent down and nodded as usual. Immediately afterwards, he boarded the candy pie-shaped reconnaissance ship again, turning his head 3 times and nodding to leave. Change the date, change the location. Tren looked at the direction Sparrow left, and even though the explanation made sense, he still fell into deep thinking. Ha. Just when Tren looked solemn, the Holy Master beside him suddenly laughed. Hearing the Holy Lord's laughter, Tren turned his head in confusion and asked, did you see anything? When the Holy Lord heard this, his eyes met with Terran's, and he said with a hint of contempt, that guy just lied. Lying. After hearing this, Tren frowned and was a little surprised. In front of our noble dragon clan and powerful demon wizards, his little tricks are simply a joke. The Holy Lord said mockingly, and then continued to explain. When he heard you ask, the wedding banquet is not held tomorrow, his expression showed a flaw no matter how hard he tried to hide it. If he simply came to inform you of the rescheduling, he would never react like that, unless, there are other ulterior secrets behind this so-called rescheduling, and they are very afraid of being discovered by you. Quote. After listening to the Holy Lord's analysis, Tren's lips slightly raised, showing a faint smile, and then asked, then what should I do? What should I do? Looking at Terran's smile, the smile on the Holy Master's face became more intense, and his eyes slowly swept over the people around him. The first thing that catches the eye is Li Jing on the left, who is leisurely drinking tea and tasting pastries. Then there was Tom, who was leaning on the guardrail fishing and occasionally yawning. Then there was Jerry, who was playing chess with Xiao He, and He Jung looked at Thor, who caught stealing Po with a look of complaint. Finally, there was Gnosis, who was looking through the books carefully. The Holy Lord narrowed his eyes slightly, and then said softly, "There are many ways to defeat them all with one force." Chapter 215 Differentiation. Advertise here. Under the cloudless sky, the sun shines brightly on the rough sea, shining brightly. A pirate ship with a unique shape is galloping on this vast sea. It rides the wind and waves and heads towards its destination, Cake Island, at full speed. Perospero stood quietly on the bow of the ship, staring ahead. The sea breeze gently brushed his face, but his mood was extremely heavy. Finally, the ship arrived at Cake Island, a place full of sweetness and danger. Perospero hurriedly disembarked and went straight to the hall on the top floor of the Cake Island. There was a tense atmosphere in the hall. The ant was sitting on her huge throne, with an unpredictable expression on her face. The three desert generals and other female cadres beside him stood quietly, with different expressions on their faces. Some were worried, some were confused, and some seemed very vigilant. Mom. Perospero stepped forward cautiously. Feeling something was wrong in the atmosphere, he immediately knelt down on one knee. Perospero, are you finished announcing the news? Auntie's voice was low and majestic, as if it could penetrate people's souls. Although this was just an excuse for Perospero in the face of Tren, in fact, the main product of the islands of all nations has indeed been moved away by Tren, which indeed made the character of the ant who always likes to eat desserts become erratic. Perospero slowly raised his head, looked at his aunt firmly with his eyes, and said in a respectful tone, "Mom, I have successfully conveyed the news to Jenny Tren, and it has been confirmed that Tren and his gang are still in the harbor of Lockmit's Island." Huh, have they always stayed there? Never gone out? The ant frowned slightly, with a sharp light in her eyes, staring at Perospero closely, and asked. After all, Jenny Tren could find out about Kaido's alliance with her by just asking a little bit. Or does that guy Jenny Tren have no doubts about this at all? Perospero carefully recalled the scene at that time, shook his head slightly, and replied, judging from his expression, he didn't seem to have any doubts about it. Moreover, before I left, I asked Franpe, who was stationed on Lockmit's Island. She was very sure that the Black Pearl of Tren's group had never left the harbor. Quote. Mom, you are really big-hearted. Jenny Tren. After hearing Perospero's report, the ant's face gradually softened. When the female cadres on the side saw this, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that now was the time for them to speak. So, they all opened their mouths to express their opinions to the ant. HMPH, Mom, actually we can crush the Tren adventure group on our own. We have no less than 40 pirate groups under Big Mom. Owen, who had recovered from his injuries and had a bad temper, said angrily. He felt that the existence of the Tren adventure group was simply a provocation to their big moms. With their strength, they could easily defeat the opponent. Irving is right, no matter how powerful it is just a pirate group. Zicket echoed, he was confident in the strength of himself and Big Mom. Back then, didn't the Roger pirates dare not rely on just one pirate group to face the Golden Lions' big pirate group in Edwall? He thought of the past history and believed that the current Troon adventure group would not be more powerful than the Roger pirates group back then. Mom, what Brother Zickert said is right, not to mention my ability, the number of people is not afraid at all. Cracker said with a smile, as if he had completely forgotten how embarrassed he had been when he was frozen. On the contrary, he has absolute confidence in his cookie soldiers. I always have a bad feeling. The Red Lady Garrett frowned. Her intuition told her that things might not be that simple, but she couldn't pinpoint why. Sister Garrett is too worried, don't forget, we are 4 emperors. Dafu said comforting words under his cold expression. Compared to us, what does Kaido say? Smoothie sat back on the soft chair, her overly long thighs crossed, showing her elegance and confidence. Go all out, only those with family can be relied upon. Katakuri said calmly. We are forming an alliance, not fighting alone. Monder snorted coldly. Seeing the discussion among his younger brothers and sisters, Perospero put up his candy cane, pondered for a moment and then knocked on the ground. Suddenly, all the sounds stopped, and everyone turned their attention to Perospero. It's not that they gave Perospero face, but that Big Mom ordered him to take full responsibility for this operation. Seeing that the noisy hall became quiet, Perospero said slowly, as I said, I don't think we can act rashly. Tren's group is not simple. We must come up with a comprehensive plan. Quote. Take the opportunity to poison the wedding banquet. Only the clever Monder stood on Feishu and suggested with a dark face, it just so happens that Kato is good at using poison. No, there are too many unstable factors in Tren's group. Perospero denied, I still haven't figured out the capabilities of all their members. Then when the time comes, when the Kaido pirates come to attend the wedding banquet, we can simply launch an attack and catch them off guard. It's too risky. What if it fails? Everyone expressed their opinions and discussed for a long time, but there was no unified opinion. The ant patted the armrest of the throne impatiently and said loudly, stop arguing. Let Perospero do the talking. Auntie roared, and the hall became quiet again, and everyone looked at Auntie. Well, this scene made Perospero, who had always claimed to be the heir, feel happy from the inside out. He cleared his throat and said, Mom is right, poisoning or sneak attacks or not, it can cause some damage to the enemy, but the risk is too great. If the enemy cannot be eliminated in one fell swoop, it will cause greater trouble. And we're not sure if Tren and his gang have the ability to detoxify or prevent sneak attacks. So I think we should adopt a more prudent strategy. Quote. After saying that, Perospero glanced at Monder and others proudly, thinking, Humph, this is the eldest son. However, at this moment, a discordant voice sounded. What would you say is a more secure strategy? The speaker was Monder, who looked at Perospero unconvinced. Perospero was a little embarrassed when Monder retorted like this, but he quickly regained his composure and replied. The war on the top has proven how terrifying it is for all members of the Tren adventure group to come together, so we first find a way to divide Tren's group, and then defeat them one by one. These words were like a bolt of lightning piercing the silent night sky, instantly igniting the fire of hope in everyone. A glimmer of light flashed in Katakori's originally calm eyes, and he asked excitedly, this is a good idea. Then how do we divide them? This needs to be done by Mom and Kaido. Perospero turned his eyes to Big Mom and Kaido, with a cunning light in his eyes. Hearing these words, the corners of the ant's mouth raised slightly, revealing a sinister smile. She picked up a piece of dessert she didn't like, put it in her mouth and chewed it carefully, as if savoring the taste of victory. Perospero is right, just leave this kind of thing to me. Chapter 216 Bonnie is not worth it. Advertise here. A storm is coming in Totland, all nations, and the entire archipelago seems to be immersed in a tense and strange atmosphere. On the sea to Lockmit's island, a simple raft struggled to move forward in the waves. Bonnie, who has long wet pink hair, is swinging the paddle crazily. Asshole, this biscuit soldier is really difficult to deal with. Her face was covered with a mixture of sweat and seawater, and her eyes revealed anxiety and determination. At the same time, there were obvious wounds and blood oozing out from her left abdomen, and the salty seawater stimulated her wounds even before the waves started to stir. But Bonnie still gritted his teeth and rowed hard while cursing in his mind. This damn weather, this damn situation. She finally broke through the tight blockade of the Big Mom pirates from Cake Island. Just to get to Rockmit's island as soon as possible and tell Jenny Tren the shocking news that Big Mom and Kaido have formed an alliance to attack the Tren adventure group. Jenny Tren, I work so hard, you can't let me down. ... After a long period of suffering, the harbor of Lockmit's island finally appeared in Bonnie's sight. Finally, Bonnie just took a breath, and suddenly a cold voice came. Frozen. In an instant, the originally undulating sea surface suddenly froze, and Bonnie's raft was also tied to ice, but it was not yet unstoppable. I saw two people picked out on the huge black pearl. Ada, 18 dragon subduing palms, kung fu hands, one leg kick. Crow flying in a plane. I saw Abao throwing the Kianwei staff into the air. In this short period of time, a set was completed in an instant. The last kick directly knocked Li Jing back several meters, the ice was slippery and then he steadily connected with Kianwei's staff. Deputy Li, don't underestimate Dragon Warrior. And the pink color is also very charming. The left corner of Abao's mouth raised. Okay. Li Jing clapped his hands, taking all of Abao's attacks with one hand. Do you know that there are 13 Taibao in Qiantang Pass? I am the boss. Back then, I and Xiao Jingdong fought all the way from Qiantang Pass to Penglai East Road, and then to North Blue. You fat asterisk hero, I am going to F asterisk K you now, you see, I have F asterisk Ked you. After speaking, Li Jing drew his sword and rushed forward. Speak of civilization and create new trends. Abao shouted. So strong. Is this the sword demon? Bonnie was stunned when he saw the battle on the harbor sea clearly, especially the fat panda who snatched macarons from him last time. He has such a strong talent for imitation. It's really boring. Brother Squidward, who was called down by Tren to create a venue, looked unhappy. On Bonnie's side, when he saw Squidward getting on the boat, he also reacted and quickly followed him. In an instant, she spent time and effort trying to break through the blockade, and a person with abilities even put his life on a small raft to cross the sea. Now when I see the scene in front of me, I instantly feel unworthy. I saw the Black Pearl parked there steadily. Jenny Tren and the others were careless and very relaxed on the ship. Come on. Tren crossed his legs, held an ice cream stick in his mouth, and hummed an unknown ditty. He looked like a gambler and shouted loudly, come and place your bets. Guess how many minutes Po can last. I think my Po can survive at least 30 minutes. Mr. Ping placed his bet with a smile on his face. I still believe in Li Jing's strength. Big Gray Wolf placed a bet of 5 minutes. At the same time, some people nearby were playing cards, some were chasing and playing, and some were lying on the deck basking in the sun, seemingly unaware of the coming storm. These guys. Bonnie was so angry that she was shaking all over. She glared at everyone in front of her, her eyes burning with anger. She thought about how she had risked her life to break through the blockade, and she couldn't hold it back for a moment. You guys, you still have the heart to have fun here. Bonnie's voice was like thunder, making the entire venue tremble. Jenny Tren was startled by the sudden roar, and the ice cream stick hanging from her mouth fell to the ground involuntarily. Bonnie. Tren's eyes widened, looking at the embarrassed Bonnie in front of him, with a puzzled look on his face. Timo, Gengar, Tren came back to his senses and quickly shouted towards the observation tower. However, Timo on the observation deck just stuck his head out, took a look at the situation below, and then retracted. Come on, Captain, there's no need. Timo's voice came from the observation deck, seeming helpless. He had already noticed Bonnie's arrival, but he didn't think Bonnie's strength was worthy of him shouting out. Therefore, he just glanced at it and continued to focus on his own affairs. This guy, don't think I don't know that you asked Gengar to go to the island to buy photos. Looking inside, Timo silently closed the book in his hand. Gengar on the side blinked his eyes, as if to say, keep going. You are seeing something wonderful. Back on the deck, Tren looked at the embarrassed Bonnie and frowned, with a hint of doubt in his tone. Why are you here? Are you not on Cake Island? Bonnie clutched the wound on his abdomen tightly and gasped for air. His eyes were full of anger and anxiety. He widened his eyes and said, Big Mom and Kaido have formed an alliance. How can your people still stay here so leisurely? Upon hearing the news, Jenny Tren's expression instantly froze, with a look of shock on her face. Big Mom and Kaido form an alliance. How could they? Bonnie rolled his eyes and said angrily, me and the guys who attended the dessert banquet were trapped on the Cake Island. I went through a lot of hardships to tell you the news, but you. So, Jenny Tren suddenly stood up, her expression became extremely serious, and her eyes were firm and sharp. You. Seeing Tren's serious expression, Bonnie was about to speak, but Tren's conversation suddenly changed and he said worriedly. If they call now, what will happen to our dinner? It's almost ready. Bonnie. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. Open black lens bracket 10% Bonnie close black lens bracket open black lens bracket 10% summon close black lens bracket. I'm not kidding. Bonnie's feet suddenly weakened and he collapsed. They are going to deal with your pirate group. Now Totland has been sealed off. They are just afraid that you will know, news. As soon as he finished speaking, Bonnie fainted due to the injury to his left abdomen. Looking at Bonnie, Tren sighed, Duanzi, you and Platelet take her down. So that's the idea. At this time, the Holy Master said, no wonder you came to deceive people this morning. So, what are your plans? Captain, plan. Tren smiled slightly, stared at the half-frozen sea, and chuckled. It's better to plan when we get together.